Evening. Good night and welcome to Mindful Life 204. I am your host Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. It's a Wednesday, and on Wednesday evenings we do the Tobago night. We talk about the Tobago issues, Tobago news coming out from the sister isle, because we live in the lovely, beautiful Twin Isle Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Never forget that and Tobago. And don't even forget the and. The and is very important. The and is the piece that takes all of the storms. When those storms pass in between Trinidad and Tobago, that and in between the Trinidad and the Tobago, it receives those storms for us. So we're grateful for even the and of course the Tobago too. Thus we talk about Tobago on a Wednesday evening. And it's a Wednesday evening, middle of the week, 29th of March. March is coming to an end. Wow, another month gone. And it's also SEA. What would you know? Is it just me, or is SEA early? Is SEA always this early in the year? Is SEA always this early in the year? I feel like for some reason it feels like SEA kind of snuck up on me. Like I wasn't ready for SEA as yet, and then boom, it's SEA already in your face. Payday special 100 TTD off jazz tickets. Really? Yeah, nah, man. I wish I was free and bowling enough to just jump over for the jazz festival. I have to make some more friends over in Tobago. We have to make those trips easy. But yes, the issues we're talking about this evening, well, as I said, I heard that Tobago won the lotto. That $24 million is over there in Tobago. So if you see a new guest house popping up, if you're in Tobago and you see your neighbor jumping up with a new guest house, or if you see them expanding those rooms, they're putting in some extra back rooms, you know. Yes, and the ticket was out from Bacolet. So any one of you out in Bacolet is on which end of the island? East, west, north, or south? Which side is Bacolet? Can you think? Trigger says it's normally this time, but the pandemic just threw us off. Oh, so the pandemic threw off what was known as the norm, and now we're back to the norm. Okay, gotcha. Seems a bit early still, but I hope those youth out there did well. I hope they did well close to the police station in Scarborough. Word up. I hope they did well. They're on to the next stage. The idea of SEA is a strange thing, you know. I don't hate exams as some people do. I just think that exams don't test for what sometimes they're saying they're testing for. I don't hate the pressure on children, because I think children should get pressured. They need that pressure in order to mature and get better. I just think you need to do it in a mature way, in a sensible way, not pressure them illogically, but, you know, pressure them in a way that they actually benefit from it. So that's the ways I'd talk about looking at it in that sense. But SEA, really and truly, the idea of SEA is a placement exam. I'm supposed to read from this which school you should go to, but do we actually use it in that way? Is that how SEA is used right now? When the mark from SEA is evaluated in order to put you in a school, are they putting you in a school based on your performance in SEA, and that school teaches differently? Or is it really and truly, according to our system, every school is technically supposed to be teaching the same thing in the same way? So then why do we even have a secondary entrance assessment placement program? If every secondary school is supposed to teach the same thing the same way, what's the point of an assessment to place you in different schools? Like, I mean, let's stop mama-guying the children, let's stop mama-guying the parents, and put it out there that some schools teach differently based on the students that come to the school. They're able to teach at a different pace on different topics, etc., etc. And we could lean into that instead of going down this mama-guy road that, you know, every school teaches the same thing and it's equal in all of these schools. And we all know that's not true. Otherwise, there would not be a need for an SEA exam or an SE assessment. SEA is for the most full benefits of parents, Ronnie Dunn says. I agree and disagree at the same time. Now, the thing is, I find, and don't take this the wrong way, but I find regularly, when I look at the SEA comments, regularly I see some sour grapes. Regularly, to be fair, I regularly see some sour grapes where Many of the people who speak ill of SEA are those whose children didn't perform that well, or they themselves didn't perform that well. And while I understand why it would be like that for you if you didn't perform well or your child didn't perform well, I understand why you may see it like that. You must understand that your criticism in that case might not be totally fair. So I cannot be angry for a parent for being proud of their child for performing well in SE. Like, some people seem like they're upset when parents are happy that their child performed well in SE. Like, why would I be upset about that? I am glad for parents. I understand why you do that. Parents put in effort and they're seeing the result of the effort. They saw their child put in effort and they're seeing the result of the effort. Obviously, they're happy. I'm not knocking that, and that's with good reason. I don't think the exam and the pride that it gives to parents of good performing children is a reason to stop the exam. It's just that the pride isn't even based on anything concrete in our education system. It's based on something that is understood, that we all mamaga each other about. We understand that the lessons that are taught in NAPS are not the same style and the same pace as the lessons that might be taught in some of those government schools. But my problem, as I'm seeing, is according to if you ask the Ministry of Education, NAPS and any government school is supposed to teach the same thing at the same speed. They're supposed to have the same teachers with the same qualifications. In effect, all of them are supposed to be mirrored forms of each other. No secondary school in Trinidad and Tobago is really and truly supposed to be different from each other, beside just in location and uniform. That's the intention of our education system, of the public education system in Trinidad. But when you join that together with the fact of the SEA, of this SEA assessment, I hate saying the SEA exam because it feels like redundancy. The secondary entrance assessment exam. An assessment is kind of an exam. So, the SE exam or the SEA. But when you say the SEA, it feels like, you have to have something at the end there. But anyway, the problem is this SEA is set up in a way that makes people believe that, when you perform better, you get a better result. And we have that. We're just mamagaing people about that. That's what I'm saying is the problem with it. I find this convo biased. According to a Trini spoken word artist, we only have one secondary school. Ooh, over in Tobago. But Tobago over the decades, with y'all one secondary school, has generally performed well on the national stage by far, because of the upper class schools. When you say upper class, do you mean wealthy? You think that some schools are based on wealth? To me, honestly, I don't think most secondary schools in Trinidad and Tobago are based on wealth. I honestly believe that most of the prestige schools in Trinidad and Tobago are based on merit. If you are a good performing child in primary school and you continue performing well, you very likely would go to one of the prestige schools in Trinidad and Tobago. By and large, our prestige schools are based on performance. By and large. Some schools allow the students to 6 subjects by default and others 8 or 9. The schools are not the same. I know that. I agree. And the thing is, Kilvon, I believe they should not be the same. Obviously, they should not be the same. All children don't learn the same. Everyone doesn't learn at the same pace. So the assessment at the end of primary school is supposed to be assessing how these children are learning to place them in a secondary school that would best suit their learning styles. So obviously, all secondary schools should not be the same. But we're mamagaing each other in this system, saying and pretending that they're all the same. And the problem that I'm seeing, one of the problems that I am seeing in the future, and we're seeing it very often, every year the calls get stronger and stronger. The problem with that is that eventually someone is going to come in who wants to force every school to effectively become the same. All prestige schools is religious denomination schools, Kaliman Co-op says. Yes, that's true. But what does that observation mean? All that observation says to me is that, as with nearly everything on earth, the government isn't efficient at running organizations. You leave the government to run the education system and they will not run it that well, while you allow a religious institution to run it and they will run it better. That's just reality. The government, in nearly anything, you give private citizens to run something instead of the government and they will run it better. So prestige schools, prestige public schools are all religious schools, but I could assure you that private schools very often outperform some of those prestige public schools too. So Nisi said I had a reading workshop last week and I fully understand now how they stress out some of these kids. Yeah. Can You Take Trigger says, I'm for constant evaluation. Exam places stress on you, studies, and start the I'm better than you. Here's the thing. I agree with you, I agree with you about the constant evaluation. I think constant evaluation is a more sensible evaluation. It tells you more than just one exam at the end. It tells you more. Constant evaluation does that. However, I don't think that we should be avoiding placing stress on children. So the reason that I would say constant evaluation is not because the exams are too stressful. The exams are supposed to be a bit stressful. They're supposed to put some strain on you because that's life. Life puts strain on you. The reason they're doing that and they're increasing the workload as you go further and further in education, because they want to put that level of stress on you, because they want to see, like, if I am hiring somebody at the end of this whole education system, I want to know that the person I'm hiring is capable of taking the stress of a difficult work day, the stress of a project that must be completed, the stress of having to put out more than they were expecting to put out. So I don't agree that necessarily stress has to be removed. You heard about the alleged leaking of the language arts? No, I did not hear about that. Life is about stress and exams. Leave the essay how it is. Positive radiation every year is the same thing. Kevon says, I don't think the stress argument is a good one. Let the children carry some load. I agree. Let the children carry some load. What we should be doing is teaching the children better how to cope with that stress. Like, I remember I have done many exams in my life, but exams never stressed me out that much because my parents had a nice view of exams. They didn't punish for your performance on the exam. You would get in trouble based on your performance for the exam, as in if you studied when you were supposed to, if you disobeyed if you disobeyed instructions to go and study or to do homework. That's what you get punishment for, not actually for performing bad in the exam. And I think that's the understanding that exams are supposed to have. It's a lot of parents, the problem with a lot of parents is they view exams similarly, and this could seem like a weird comparison here, but many parents view exams similarly, like how many parents view pregnancy of children, of young adults, those teen pregnancies. They view the pregnancy itself as the huge wrong thing. The reason you view the pregnancy as the wrong thing is because in society you view the sexual interactions as wrong. And if that's the case, the sex was wrong, not the pregnancy. You're looking at the wrong thing and punishing the people for the wrong thing. If you're punishing the child for the exam, the problem wasn't the exam, the problem was the whole term that went on before. The exam just showed the result of an entire term. So I think personally, if a child reaches to an exam and performs horribly and that takes the parent by total surprise, then the parent wasn't doing their job properly in the first place. Score-based analysis, i.e. standardized tests, does not produce critical thinkers, bro. Yes and no. You see, the purpose of a standardized test isn't to test your critical thinking skills by and large. The purpose of a standardized test is to test your ability to retain and compute information. That's the purpose of a standardized test. It's like It's like a printer. You know those printers where you could print the example sheets where they do the alignment and all of that and all of that and all of that. Yes, the alignment isn't there to print a book for you, but it's there to test to see if all the things that make you able to print out a book as a good printer are there. If you understand what I mean. The test isn't there to test your critical thinking skills. It's there to test your ability to communicate. So, okay, when we know that you can critically think, okay, can you use the English language? Are you able to properly use the English language so that all your marvelous critically thought out ideas are able to be understood by other people? That's the purpose of the exam. Nathan, while we're on this topic, what's your take on Jolly Phonics program? I looked at it, you know. I can't give a take right now because I'm not sure, it's not at the top of my head. You might have to ask my wife about that. She is the preschool genius on that end. She's the one that runs the younger children, and I'm sure she'll have an opinion on Jolly Phonics, but I don't know. Is it that our system torn between an American style versus British style of education? Brandon AP09, I like that. I like that. And I think we are having a bit of a problem with that as we progress through the 2000s. And I mean, you could look at how our education system actually works in reality, and you could see some of that. Which spelling of flavor do we use in our education system? FLAVOUR or FLAVOR? Which color do we use? COLOUR or COLOR? Those things matter because that's the English and the British system. And I do think that we have a bit of a struggle there because on paper, the structure of our education system is supposed to be based on the British system. Supposed to be. But culturally, we are becoming more and more swayed by the American side of things. And I think our tertiary education institutions, as most tertiary education institutions in the world, lean more and more towards that kind of American view of learning and education, which then turns around and influences down into the earlier system. Cisco says, I would like to eventually hear your thoughts on the recent BRICS deals. And the recent BRICS deals, it's getting intense. Yes, it is. How come SEA is such a big thing, and when Common Entrance was here, it wasn't a big deal? That's not true, you know, user. Common Entrance was a massive deal also. People cried about Common Entrance. People got licks and big trouble about Common Entrance too. Good night, Trinidad Sketch. If the exam is standardized, the teaching should be as well. For example, I'm reading it myself, smaller exams. I do large exams in a certain setting. I go blank, Canute Sig Trigger says. And you see Canute Sig Trigger, in that case, what happened there is the test proved something. The test has proven that you need to work on your ability to perform under greater pressure. That's what the test showed. JJ King says so many textbooks are conflicting in the language. Yep. The TPAC CEO suing a sister company for jobs. I'm not sure about that. The reality is that school has become more about memorization, not so much learning anymore. Yeah, it has. Empress Rooney says, but they said if you spell one way, they will not penalize the child once they stick to it. Common Entrance was more pressure. More children feel there was stigma for repeaters. Yeah. I think Common Entrance was actually worse than SE. Because you could have failed Common Entrance and stayed down, and you would have been in post-primary standard 6. Yeah, you were getting bad in primary school back in those days. Everybody knew it, and the bullying and stigma didn't have to happen latently. You really don't see, oh, that the dancey class. Yeah, he in the dancey class, them in the stay back class, like playing out. Yeah, them in the stay back class now, boy. Bro. Could you imagine? Could you imagine social media with standard 6 and post primary? Like, you're post primary, you know. That post is after. You're after primary and still in primary. Could you imagine that in the days of social media? Jeez, it would have been brutal. Tobago Performing Arts Company CEO sued Tobago Festivals Commission for jobs. Or is that the jazz business? Is that the jazz business? The guy with the stage and lights company? JJ King says regurgitating information in school is the name of the game. Partially yes, partially yes. I agree that many exams and etc. has become about memorization, which is not what the intention should be, but it is what it has become, and I don't think it's necessarily totally irrelevant education system that tests you on your ability to remember things. At the end of the day, by and large, the people that perform the best in our education system are the people who are the hardest workers with the best intelligence levels. That's kind of what they're looking for in an education system. The aim is to stratify. The disappointing thing in the public education system is not a bug, it's a feature. It's not a bug, it's a feature. There will never be a way a public education system could be set up with the aim that our education system is set up with without disappointment in it. There would be some jobs that are more wanted, there would be some jobs that are less wanted. So therefore the qualifications to get the jobs that are more wanted would have more competition. Having more competition means that some people will not get in. Some people will be disappointed. By just the nature of that structure, there will always be disappointment. And our education system is created to divide people into basically jobs. The idea of the public education system is job placement for the most part. That's why even right now when they talk about the GATE program, they're talking about it in terms of about the needs of the job market in Trinidad and Tobago, because the public education system for the most part is about job placement. Yes, positive radiation. I get the signal. I get the signal very well, positive. I get the signal very well. All right, let's jump into some Tobago news. Jumping into the sister isle. Over in Tobago, we're seeing that the party in charge is looking to move out of the specter of independence. The point of the education system is to identify the people who are the best at schooling. Yes, correct. Very true. Yes, the the THA members, Bonaccord Massive inside Coleman Corp says, woy. The THA says, they're fed up of this independent thing. They're looking to step up from the independence rule. And it's creating some interesting things over there in Tobago. Now, I saw the minority leader has quite a bit of a problem with that, and of course he would have a problem with that. He is the opposing force over there in Tobago, so he would oppose that. But the THA leader says, I've been called an independent too long. THA secretary on new party. THA Secretary of Food Security, Natural Resources, the Environment and Sustainable Development, Natisha Charles Pantin, says she is excited about next week's launch of a new political party in Tobago, mainly because I have been called an independent for too long. What does that mean, though? Is it bad to be called an independent? I'm not sure, what is the conclusion one is to draw from being called an independent too long. It could nearly seem like you're trying to say that I am not independent and people have been calling me independent for too long, so I want to show them I am not independent. And then, is that necessarily a positive thing? I would consider that another yes curve on. I could understand why they may be looking to create a party, because if you want to allow some longevity in this governance, I could understand why you would want to have a structure around the governing body. I could understand that. Don't get me wrong, I understand why they would want to make a party. But when you say something like I've been called independent too long, I don't think that would have been my intro to that. Because in politics, generally speaking, in politics, being called an independent person in politics is usually a good thing. That's usually kind of a compliment, you know. When you're called independent, that means you're not swayed by the opinion of any outside group so easily. You're making decisions on your own. You're independent. So, I mean, I wouldn't have said that, but okay. Empress Roni says that's the first time I've heard from this secretary, and it's not even about her division. Hi. Almost 4 months after declaring themselves independence, members of the Farley Augustine-led THA administration are set to launch a new party on April 4th at the Shore Park Cultural Complex from 5 to 8 p.m. A post on Facebook said on Monday. So, how many of you all in the live going out? Positive Edition says, but our political history would show independent make no impact. You know, Positive Radiation, if that's the case, wouldn't it be a boost then for you to be the independent that did make the impact? Like if you're saying that in our politics, being an independent has never historically had an impact. Well, now you have the opportunity to go out there, call yourself an independent, and create avenues for independent people in the future in politics. Like, wouldn't it have been wonderful? And I know this is dreaming. This is all dreamy talk here. But wouldn't it have been wonderful if this group would have stayed on as independents, run such a good ship, such a good management team, that the next election in Tobago, a lot of independents feel the ability to go up for that election because they see that there are avenues for independence. They're seeing Tobagonians are seeing that independents have run this thing the best. Instead, what they're going to do is play right back into the same cultural thing that they say they dislike, where in order for this to really run, we need to be part of a party. And you know, these things make me actually more suspicious of people, because the thing with party is they are party politics. Parties create party politics. Independents aren't supposed to have independent politics, but parties create party politics where the members holding your party card must have more access to you and a bit of a greater say in what you do. So the lack of interest in independence, I don't think, is a positive thing. The news came 12 days after THA Minority Leader Kelvin Morris urged Augustine to form a new party so that Tobagonians could go back to the polls. On Tuesday, Charles Panton confirmed the party will be launched next week. It is about time, she told reporters during a break at the Institute of Marine Affairs 8th Community Research Symposium at Shore Park. People want to know that we are under a party symbol, a party name. Is that true? Votes only mean something if they are pooled. They could be pooled behind an independent person. Be quiet. The Tobagonians are going at it in the TikTok chat there. Once no one is injured at the end. But is it true that the people in Tobago would prefer the independent leadership to be under a party? Is that true? Now, I could understand why. Someone might. I could understand why someone might do that, because if you're under a party, you would at least have to have a coalesced vision, a coalesced statement saying that these are the things we are aiming at, these are the things that our party stands for. So, okay, we could have something to look at directly there. So, I could understand why some people may want that, but is that true? Is it that the general view of Tobago is that they would prefer their leadership to form a party? Kevon says, Farley, it all rode the wave and benefited from Duke's energy. Duke's ambition got the better of him. Yeah. That I think that was pretty apparent. Part of the problem I have with this, and I mean, it's the nature of politics. It's not illegal, so it is what it is. But part of the problem I have with this is I don't think that this group of independents would have won the Tobago election without the catalyst of Watson Duke. So it could nearly feel like a Trojan horse seeming something that you invited this group in with this face and this leader, and when they came in, they changed face and they changed leader, and it's not the same group that you voted in. So they would have gotten Tobago to choose them, and the them that Tobago chose is not the them that is actually there now, if you understand what I mean. It's not the same group. So that's the kind of issue I would have with this in terms of the spirit of democracy. In terms of the spirit of democracy, that's the kind of issue I'd have with this. But it is what it is. Kilburn says Farley and them forming a new party while holding office after a mass resignation was not forthright. Agriculture is the best division. Positive Radiation says Mr. Duke is a boss and not a leader. I might agree with you. I am not a big fan of the guy. I don't think he is. I would prefer him to lead a group that I am part of. But nonetheless, that is the man that Tobago chose. If Tobago wanted that kind of boss leadership, that's who Tobago wanted. To say that, okay, this man isn't good for them, so we're going to change that, well, that's kind of usurping the will of the people, if you understand what I mean. You cost them Tobago East and Tobago West. Like Positive Radiation, I know supporters of the Farley-led THA say this very often, but when you all say that, are you all being honest? That you all really believe the THA election would have been won without Watson Duke? Do you think Mr. Farley and whatever his new party is going to be called would have won the Tobago House of Assembly election without Mr. Duke? I think we're being dishonest if we're saying that. I think we're being dishonest. I don't think Mr. Farley had the required natural charisma. I don't think he had what it took to outseat the PNM. Duke was the battering ram. Good night, Tony the Ambassador. Duke was the battering ram. I don't think Mr. Augustine had that battering ram capability. That's not saying he's an incompetent man. That's not talking about the man general intelligence or anything like that. But in terms of his outward appeal, in terms of his public speaking charisma, I don't think he would have had what it took. But that's the nature of politics. And the biggest loser in this case might actually be Mr. Duke. Because he was of the opinion, because just as I'm saying, I don't believe they could have won without Mr. Duke. At the same time, I don't think Mr. Duke would have won without them. So, as much as people could say that they used Mr. Duke, good night, Curtin Eiffel. As much as people could say that they used Mr. Duke, at the same time, I think Mr. Duke was attempting to use them too. Oh, Ronnie, good night. He must have paid 5 times on a campaign. I think he was attempting to use them too, because he understood that his public image does not carry the required gravitas. His public image was a bit too soiled to be put up there as that prime leadership candidate. That is why, as leader of the party, he didn't put himself as chief secretary. Kaliman Corp says this is election we're talking about or a pageant show. The reality, Kaliman Corp, is that elections are kind of a pageant show. That's the reality. I was looking at a really amazing bit of history. Do you know that since Gillette, Gillette in the United States invented the disposable razor, there has not been a US president who was not clean shaven? All of the presidents before that razor was invented had beards and those regal mustaches and stuff, you know, like real men. But since that, all of them were clean shaven. Optics. Voting is about optics. Winning elections are about optics at the end of the day. So yeah, it is kind of a pageant show, Kaliman Co-op. Tony the Ambassador says, do you think Fally can win now if elections are called now? I don't think so. I don't think so. I do not think Mr. Fally would win elections if they are called now. Here's a reality of politics. There's a school of political thought that says nearly no one actually changes vote. That the idea that people that people change votes isn't actually that true. Not many people change who they vote for. Like if you voted for PNM for the last 5 elections, it's unlikely you're going to vote for someone else. However, what often happens is based on the campaign, based on what is happening in the time of the elections, more people turn out to vote or less people turn out to vote. So I am almost certain one of the things that happened when the PNM lost the last Tobago House election there is that many faithful PNM voters did not turn up to vote, because they may have been disappointed in PNM. Many of them would not have gone and voted for PDP because they have that political loyalty inbuilt in their heart, but many of them just did not turn up for the election. If an election were to be called now, because of what has already gone on since the PDP has been in power, I think a lot of people who already were leaning or would have been leaning towards PNM favorability, they would turn up in their high numbers. And many of the people who the PDP may have been able to drag out, who may have never voted before in their life, because I don't trust no politician, but Watson and them come down in my yard and make a cook and them convince me that them go and do so and so and so and so. Many of those people, the first time voters that the PDP turned out, many of them, I think, would not vote again. Many of them would not vote again, and that's the reality. That's just how a lot of those things go. So I don't think they would win, actually. I don't think they would win. Tony the Ambassador says, I figure there would be a swing back towards the PNM for the next elections in Tobago. I believe so. PNM loyalists voted PDP, they shame now. Well, yeah, there are some people who change votes, but not that many, actually. Whoa, TikTok algorithm has brought me back on my day. Yo, Safi, what's good? Looking at Tobago politics and living in Tobago is different, eh? Just saying. I believe that. I believe that totally. Even in the absence of Duke, Fally has not established himself well as a leader. That's true. That's true. And no offense meant to Mr. Fally. It would be lovely if you're inside of the live here. I don't know if he's inside or if he has a representative inside here. No offense meant to Mr. Fally, but I don't think that he has elevated himself to that kind of outstanding leadership position. Some of what Mr. Fally was saying before he was elected was at that kind of level. But I think since he has been in the chief secretary position, maybe the job isn't what he expected. Maybe it's a bit overwhelming, but I haven't seen him fill that position as well, at least not as yet. How you expect them, Ronnie? You said on a previous live, public servants working against this administration, how you expect them to win when their policies are being blocked and frustrated? That's true. You know, positive radiation. That was one of the main complaints of one Mr. Donald J. Trump. Donald J. Trump. And it was factual. When Donald Trump won back in 2016 in the United States, just as in every other country, there are lots of public servants that work for the government that aren't fired or changed with each presidential election, just as in Tobago with each house election. And the complaint that he was having, and if you ever looked at Tobago politics and hear people talk about the deep state, that's what he's talking about. Those people who would have been hired since the 1980s and still work for the CIA, still work for the FBI, still work for the Department of Justice, still work for Homeland Security, still work for all the different federal agencies out in the United States. They were there and they were working against him. And institutions are not machines. I remember we had a discussion about this in one of the lives. Institutions are not machines. A politician doesn't have the ability to input instructions into his ministry as if it's a machine and press enter into a computer and it's going to automatically carry out his orders. These are people. You have to be able to get people to do what you want them to do. And if the people do not want to do it, you're in for a difficult time. Kevon says there have been a few scandals already, and sometimes he looked like it there in the highlights. There's a conservative guy running for president calling for term limits on some civil servants. I agree with that. And so, you talk to some politicians off the record and they talk about the difficulties they run into with the permanent secretaries and all of the different administrators in the public service. They don't. Part of the problem, and I always talk about this, that those politicians should come and make it public. You know, they should blast these public servants out in the public and make it known. And I say that and I believe that, but I understand why they will not want to do that. I could understand why they will not want to do that, because these politicians have to work with these public servants. They need these public servants really badly. They need the public servants more than the public servants need them. That's the power imbalance in those cases. The public servants don't need the politicians. Whether it's the PDP in power, whether it's the PNM in power, I still have my job. My job still is there. My money still has to run. So you could complain how much you want to complain. If I don't want to do it, how are you going to make me do it? Yeah, positive radiation, you're on the inside. What's up, bro?
Lovely, good night. Let's look at the recent scenario with the clerk of the house. I mean, looking at public servants frustrating policy. It's a common courtesy. If you can't attend a job, you would call your boss, you would call in before, and say, well, boss, I'm in a squeeze. I can't make it, or I'll leave, or whatever. You may not always get a pleasant response from your boss, but it's common courtesy to indicate that you would be late or not coming. How could you hold a critical position as the clerk of the house and just simply not show? If you was in an accident, you would have been on Liz Williams some way about. And then when we do the research now, the sitting, the deputy presiding officer in that case read out one cabinet note number 2886, gives the position of the clerk, and we went into detail on the 14th of February at an executive meeting. They passed to make the position of deputy clerk a position contractual. None of those positions were filled. So how could we now come and accuse this administration or previous administration of something that was written into the cabinet note? So you understand where I'm coming from?
Yes.
So sometimes we blame politicians for a lot of things that are not their responsibility. Nobody's asking for the Public Service Commission. Nobody wants to know why that position have never been filled since the formation of the new version of the Tobago House of Assembly. So we can now say, yes, public servants frustrating them, but we need to review the whole public service laws and regulations.
Correct. And a bit of a, I fully understand what you're saying there, positive, but I read in Leon Amara say, like, but it's Rowley calling there, and you know, as he said, I kind of hearing it in a positive. If you if you lower the tone a little bit, you know, you're just talking that more guttural tone, you really have a Rowley finish, you know. You really have that Rowley finish.
I've heard that, and I've heard that from several current sitting politicians. That is the most I would go on that discussion currently. But what I'm saying too, and I think it's something we need to look at, you see, an educated politician or an educated voter would make an educated decision. So I think we need to know when to separate a citizen or a population from an electorate. When you begin to speak as an electorate, politicians see you differently because they understand the power you hold as a member of the electorate. But we also need to understand that when you make certain statements publicly, the public service regulations protect public servants in many cases, even if they're wrong. So even common courtesies that you would extend in a lot of cases, they're not going to do it. Or they're going to fight you.
The thing is, though, positive. I agree with everything you're saying there. But the thing is, you must understand that to the electorate, to the public, it seems very convenient. And then how do we choose which politician would be the best to govern us if the plausible reason, let's not call it an excuse because it's a plausible reason, the plausible reason why they aren't getting things done is very often the administrators, the public service staff that they have. If they could plausibly say that it's not our fault, then why do we change politicians? Best we leave the ones that are there. It's not their fault, it's the fault of the staff. How do we know when it is the staff and how do we know when it is the politician?
I was waiting for Ronnie, but I realized like she disappeared.
Nah, she dropped out, but she coming back. She is connecting back.
What I think would happen, and as I said already, and I will say it again. Sorry, I apologize.
Rooney, hearing now?
I don't know what's going on. I hear an echo and that.
I hear you good. I hear you very good. I hear you very good if you're going. Okay. Well, she's out again. Yeah, positive.
So, and I think that is one of the challenges I usually would have. Because with the current position where I sit, I see a lot of things on a regular basis that I wouldn't go public with. But a number of these scenarios, the reality is the sitting politician can't do a lot of stuff. It has to go through a bureaucratic process, and understandably so, to ensure accountability and a lot of these types of things. However, when we do get a challenge now is when you give an instruction, you're realizing that administrators not acting on it. Some of them saying they're not getting the emails. Some of them frustrating them for some unnecessary reasons. So how are we now to move the population from a standpoint where we don't just see the politician as having to fix everything and having an understanding of the process, how it goes? If it leaves the secretary, does it go to the administrator? Following the administrator, does it go to the accounts department? Is it that there is an AE1 in the accounts department who is not carrying out the administrator's instruction? Is it that the AE1 and the administrator get away because somebody get home last week or somebody get with somebody, man? How do we get the reason for some of these problems? And because it might sound wrong or crude, but it's the reality.
You're right, and this is you're saying what I know you would know that because you're in a lot of the lies. This is what I've been saying so long. We need to get away from the idea that the politicians are the solution because really and truly they are not. Very often they cannot do what they promise that they can. Sometimes part of it is sometimes people like maybe the Farley Augustins, some of them may not have even fully understood that it's not even possible to do some of the things that they're talking about. They may not have understood that, but the reality is yes, it's fighting irony, I've seen that. But the reality is that a lot of what they do, they don't have full control over. I like what you were saying there, Curvon, where I saw an argument for CCP guy. A guy said that America can change leaders, but not policy. China can't change party, but they can change policy. And that's part of the truth. That's a partial truth, where in Trinidad, it's in most democratic countries that are structured the way ours are structured. It's actually very difficult to change policy because what we have done is we've removed a lot of power a lot of direct power out of the hands of the politicians because we're afraid of what they will do with it. And because of that, we've created a bureaucratic system to try and balance the power. But what ends up happening is now the politicians don't have the power to actually do what we want them to do, but they still have the power to thief the money. The thing that we're worried they're going to do, they still have the ability to do that, but they don't have the power to actually execute the changes that we want in society. It's a kind of really counterproductive thing. And what you see happening is the people on let's say the PNM side of politics, they would see that they would see authentic PNM politicians that are out there trying their best, and they're seeing that some of the holdups are in administration. So PNM, all you don't know how much PNM is trying about, all you don't know. And then people on the PDP side would see similar things, and people on the UNC side would see similar things, and we're then arguing in circles about which party is which party and which party is that, and they're facing some of the same struggles too. So in choosing parties though, what that means is when you're looking at a party, what you're looking for should be based on that understanding. When somebody comes and promises you the sky and moon and stars, like I found basically some of the promises that were made in the last Tobago House election, I found them silly. And the fact that it seemed like lots of Tobagonians ate up those promises made me disappointed in Tobago. I found lots of these statements that Mr. Augustine made were policy promises that some sounded good, but the overarching umbrella policies of the PDP, what they were promising that last election, I found sounded way too gimme, airy-fairy, and obviously impossible. Obviously. So if you're hearing people promising that, that's not what you want out of your politicians, really. Coleman Co-op says there has not been an authentic PNM party since Eric Williams' government. What do you mean authentic? What does that even mean?
Okay, let me not stay long because TikTok going and probably fight me down a little bit more. Right. I wanted to ask for the positive reaction. Yes, while I said that the administrators are, I think, sabotaging the assembly. The reason I would like to hear why is that? Like, what did these assemblymen and women do to these administrators to make them want to sabotage? Like, for years, I've never heard any like, the things I'm hearing now, the things that I'm seeing now, the things that I'm reading now, and I don't, like you were saying, I don't watch Tobago updates. Like, I understand. I used to watch Tobago updates before, and I had time and whatever, but now I don't have the time, right? And as I said, I have watched Tobago updates and I see them allow politicians to sidestep the questions, to dance around the topic, and they never get a genuine answer from them. They never get a real answer from them. The only person I've seen ask really serious and relevant questions was Candace, but Candace starts at 8 o'clock. I had to get to work at 8 o'clock, so that didn't work for me. But yeah, I just thought it was all a bit dumb. That's just me. But yeah, you're free to answer the first question. The second one was that question. It was just an observation or an opinion or something.
No problem. Wonderful question, Empress. I will answer this in several parts. Let's look at history. Sometimes I'm not a student of history, but I like political history, because I think it shows you the minds of the population over the years and how things have changed and how people think. Let's look at the history of the Tobago House of Assembly. Prior to this, before this batch or this new leadership, who was there before, how many years they served, and who was there prior to that organization and how many years they served, and the system and the way it operated. And we could go right back to A&R Robinson. Many Tobagonians do not know that A&R Robinson was a member in the first parliament of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. He was a founding member of the People's National Movement. He was disowned because he had some disagreements with Dr. Williams then, and there are some falling out. And I only found this out the second day I spent in Trinidad as a student. Somebody jammed me on it, and when I began to investigate, that when I found out some of these things. So there's always been a kind of battle between PNM Trinidad and PNM Tobago ever since. All the political organizations in Tobago could be considered breakaway from the PNM.
Correct.
If you really brought them back as well.
True. Good point.
Coming directly to your question, over the number of years, obviously secretaries would build relationships with administrators and staff. We know how the job space in Tobago would work. If I want a permanent work, my daughter might sleep with somebody, it is alleged, and then you find all of a sudden somebody get in some position and all of a sudden they get permanency. Or somebody link with somebody in some back room or in some hotel, and then we know that how the system works. We don't have concrete evidence. Okay, Ms. Veronica, go ahead.
No, I just say you should walk that statement back because we had who about our former prime minister who had made the girl the head of what? And what she right on man say she was doing with the girl? So don't make it sound like it's Tobago. You're sleeping with people to get job. No, that's normal.
No. I understand what Positive saying. He's not saying it's only Tobago, but he's saying that exists in Tobago. I just find it very. He's saying like, you know, this is very public knowledge in Tobago that people selling their daughters for permanent work and thing out there. Things.
Can I continue to complete my response?
Yes. It's going very interesting.
So, when I say public knowledge, we don't have concrete evidence. Anybody, we know how the space is small and there's another talk. And sometimes people are in position to see it, but you have to protect yourself, you have to protect your sanity and your life. So, let's take it from that. So, that's how, let's say, for instance, that's how I get my permanent job. Let's say the electorate now come and switch for whatever reason. I hold a permanent senior position. The perks or the underhand deals with the corruption I was getting before, all of a sudden it cut now because my new leadership or this new administration now is beginning to squeeze me. It's beginning to say all the paperwork must be intact. All the policies implemented by my administration, which we could have foregone or we could have ducked, because nobody was paying attention to it. They are now enforcing that. Wouldn't it be easier for me as a human being to try my best to undercut them, to go back to my normal way of life, where you have to give me something under the table for a thing to happen, or you don't have to do it straight by the books because I could talk to that and they will approve it for you. And now, everything you must dot your T's and cross your I's for approval. Is it not more easy as a human being to fight an administration that is following process and procedure after spending close to 20 years, 2 decades of operating in a corrupt system?
The thing is, I
want to answer you.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to answer him because you know me, I forget. I'm going to still disagree with you because these positions and positions that you could give politically, right? These are positions that a person would have applied to back in 1990 something as a class one and build the way up because to be administrator in those divisions, you don't just, it's not a contracted something. That's not, as I say, permanent. You say permanent, right? And to come up there, take years and years. People who started working in 1990 probably didn't even reach up on that position yet. But to say that, it's kind of, it's not that, I can understand if they say, well, yeah, they're accustomed to their ways, but to say that they inside they because of, but that's not true. But no, I would like to bring to your attention, there are lots of contracts that don't have contracts. You understand what I'm saying? Like a lot of things, a lot of deals have been made in the last year, and they don't have any paperwork with. They may come out to the public like, yeah, we are above board or whatever they say, but that's not true. When you look into the books of these places, as you say, Agri is best. Agri is the worst. Agri is the worst. Yes, the tractors. Baby, where are the tractors? They have paid for tractors that they don't have. So, come on. You're getting squeezed, yeah. But they're doing a lot of hand shopping us the same way.
Yes, no, you'll go right after. I just have a comment to make there positive on what you were saying before. I could see an administrator, Ronnie was saying that those jobs are jobs of seniority, but there would still be someone who would choose who gets the promotion. There would be someone to make that choice.
The service commission chooses that.
Right.
Seniority.
Right. And who hires the service commission?
That's central government, central man.
And who was running central government for a lot of that time?
So wait, the conspiracy go back.
Wait, Ronnie. Ronnie, just now, the conspiracy, are you saying you doubt that senior positions in the public service are given out and held back based on political patronage? You doubt that?
No, I do not think so. I know the reason I would say that is this, right? One, it is based off of the seniority list, right? So there is a list. There's not just like, okay, you know this one, you and this one, good, cool. You go get the job. It has a list. And if you are overlooked on that list, best believe you can go to court and sue the government or sue the commission or whoever.
All right. Just now, who chooses the police commissioner? Just now, who chooses the police commissioner?
What's your name? I forget your name.
No, a commission, a service commission. Just as there's a public service commission, a service commission chooses the commissioner. Do you think there was any kind of political involvement in the choosing and not choosing of Gary Griffith?
Of course.
But isn't that a service commission just like the public service commission with the barrier of the president in between it to make sure it's independent too?
Mm-hmm.
So if there could be political involvement in something as big and serious as a as a police commissioner with the barrier of a service commission there, do you think there could be political considerations inside the public service commission that they're not talking about choosing a police commissioner here, they're talking about choosing a senior administrator? Don't you think that a minister could make a call to the service commission because they know all the service commissioners? All of the service commissioners are hired out of senior intellectuals in Trinidad and Tobago. You aren't hired as a service commissioner without having political friends. They make a call to the commissioner and let them know, well, you know, Miss Williams, the name on the list, well, that's the one. You think that's impossible? Really?
I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm just saying there are routes to kind of cover yourself on that. If you're in the list and you know that you're senior somebody, you have the same qualifications, whatever, and they overlook you, and you are senior to that person, you can't come here.
The way how those things go, Ronnie, the way how those things go most of the time, Ronnie, is not that it's...
You don't get any progress like 1 year and you don't know that.
Yes, but just now, here's what I'm saying. The way how those things go most of the time is not that they would go and choose a person with 1 day experience over somebody with 30 years experience, but there aren't one name being given for a position at a given time. In nearly every position, there would be 10, 20 more names, and someone has to make a choice, and those choices aren't based on objective statistics. You cannot go back over the Police Service Commission choosing Miss Erla Christopher. Miss Erla, you cannot go over them choosing Miss Erla and figure out how they chose Erla over the rest. You cannot do that because it isn't an objective choice like that. It is subjective. They have the power to subjectively choose who they want to choose. That's how it goes. So yes, I believe there is to move on a bit because we trapped there. I believe there is political patronage in choosing senior administrators, and even if there was not, remember, as a senior administrator in Tobago there, you would have been dealing with a THA run by the PNM for the last 20 years or so. You would have had to have been, even if you weren't put there by politicians, you would have had to have been a really good person in terms of your relationship with the senior politicians in the PNM. You would have built up 20 years worth of relationships with those senior politicians. You have very likely some amount of loyalty on that side. It's not hard to see why you would have interest in wanting things to go back like that. And also, yes, there would be the side, and I suppose this is kind of what you're saying too, there would be the side where I am sure when some of the PDP senior politicians went in there, they thought that they could get things to run their way. And I could tell you, the worst thing you could do to a public servant with power is try and test the power. That is the worst thing you could do. If you go in there, like if you go into a public service building and the security guard have power over the book to sign, and you pretend like you don't want to, you want to see hell right there. So I don't doubt that the PDP, some of those in the PDP may have gone into some of those administrators and feel, well, you do so and so, and you do so and so, and I was so and so part. You remember how Duke spoke? How Duke spoke? He want money to just end up in New York by the next day. If he went in with that attitude to deal with public servants, yeah, man. Tanti Mavis, who in the public service since 1985, not taking that. So I could see both of those interactions, the loyalty from 20 years of PNM, plus the friction with the new boss, both of those things working together to create a real unhealthy stew, where I could see it easily why public administrators in the THA may be a little frictitious with the new administrators. It could be explained. All right, Positive Radiation, you was next. I talk real long this. Sorry. Go ahead.
Rooney was also making the point that some of the deals may not be clean or as clean as. And this is why I am not against the bureaucratic process. Because as an administrator or a public servant, once you say anything that is you're not comfortable with, there is a process for you to either say not comfortable or to block it. Because if an instruction comes to me personally anywhere I work, once I'm not comfortable with it, I indicate to my seniors or to my superiors. If they have a problem with it, I would put it in writing. And following their written response to me, I would execute the instructions. So in the event anything happens, I have already CYA. So even in the event it's to become problematic, I CYA. I know some public servants who tell you openly they don't take oral instructions. Come nobody senior. Send them a WhatsApp message, send them an email. So even in the event that they are a right rule, and if you read the Tobago House of Assembly Act, it clearly states the chief accounting officer is the chief administrator in the division. The administrators are the accounting officers. That is why you see a lot of bacchanal in the campaign. A particular political leader was painted as being also corrupt. But for today, they have not gone to court. Because when you read the details of the act, the administrator is the person who is held accountable. So if you're not comfortable or you feel something is illegal, you can block it. However, take the correct procedure for blocking it. Indicate why, indicate what are the reasons. But then again, we have a tie-up justice system too.
You're saying this, and I seen.
Your document, they can't tie you up.
Here's the thing, Rooney. He's saying you're good just now. He's saying this, and I just seen kind of the impossible quagmire of mud and murk to actually get some of these things to work, you know, because the senior administrator is the chief accounting officer. They have to be the one to clear the money. Let's say you as the chief accounting officer see something going awry in the books here. You want to make us think about this. If you make an issue about that, remember just how the politicians may not want to go cross the administrators because they have to deal with the administrators in the future. The administrators wouldn't want to cross the politicians because they may have to deal with the politicians in the future too. And you might have children who inside the system, just how you could victimize the politician, they could victimize your relatives in the... Jeez.
Yes, Daddy.
Okay, well, that's what you wanted to come here to do? That's pathetic.
I'm very disappointed in it. Stop adding these random.
No, I am okay with that in randoms, you know. And each random that does that would just get the same thing. I find that so strange, you know. The internet brings out such a strange side in people, where you would be prowling the internet at 10:56 to randomly do something like that. Like, you need to find something better to do with your life. If that's what you're doing, you need to find something more sensible to do with your life. Hey, what's going on? Any further comments or questions inside of the live? It's Tobago.
But Nathan, you didn't finish your comment.
What's the comment I was making? The guy threw me
Not
off.
sure you're bad, but
Totally out my mind.
But really, I would like to ask you a question. Am I permitted?
yeah.
The
This
current
comment
clink of
privately.
no problem. Not a problem at all. I understand diplomacy. I doesn't always practice it.
That's okay, me neither.
The current acting clerk of the assembly. Do you know which division she was the administrator of after being sent to becoming the clerk?
No, I don't. Is that
She was the administrator in the division of settlements. Okay. I think we could leave it there.
You know something?
It has something said that wasn't said. What's with the division of settlements? What's on the inside of the division of settlements? I want to know. I hearing this kind of knowing laugh from both of you. I know two of you all is disagree on plenty things. Both of you all laughing together about something and I clueless. What's going on with the division of settlements?
Oh boy. That's just it. Tobago will be Tobago. And you know something? You're right. You're very correct. A lot of these admins, boy. Yeah, boy.
I think, Mr. Nathan, what I would advise you to do is do some research into the operations or news articles and publications as to what was taking place in the division of settlements
Okay.
over the past 21 years and the different leaders.
I will take a note of that, the division of settlements.
That's the most I would say on that now.
Yes.
So trying to tell me. So if I had a friend in the division of settlements, I could have been settled in Tobago by now? What did you...
Refuse to comment on such matters publicly.
No, but you know, strangely enough, I've not heard much about Agri, and Agri was a place that was supposed to be on class. From years ago, years ago, Agri was always doing cheapness. But I don't know if the administrator moved from Agri. I never did ask. But Agri was doing some real questionable things.
Bro,
Still are.
Somebody link me a friend inside the division of settlement in Tobago. I want to live in Tobago. I want a home in Tobago.
But Ms. Dhoni, you know what I found interesting about your previous statement? I was the one saying Agri appears or seems to be the best division currently. You are the one who indicated some discrepancies. You don't need to go into details. We can leave that out for the public to speculate. And you are now saying you're not hearing much about Agri, and Agri really was in a mess.
Yeah. Well, a lot of these things they don't. Well, I personally would get it because where I work, right? So I would have seen firsthand the things that was going on in Agri for the last 4 years, right? Because I'm obsessed with about 4 years ago. So it's about 4 years now I'm watching these scenes happening, and to me nothing has changed. Now I have not followed up on if anybody was moved or any shake up happened, because some of the things I was doing was real outside order, like and I know it wasn't political, and this is why I always say, so when people want to, like, I don't blame the current administrators, I don't blame the previous. fuck, a lot of these administrators are the ones to blame for all of this. Politicians will come, no, that's true. Politicians just come under this training up. Come, do this, and it's come quick in a hurry. I want this now. And you know that you don't have a cabinet minute to pass that. You know something? As you talk about this, as you talk about this vision that you talk about just now. It had a point, everyone. It had a point in time. We was watching these people and them, right? And contract work. You know, every year, public servants is there's called a thing appraisal and get the little increase, whatever that's called, I can't remember what it's called, increment. You know, these people and them was paying a contract workers increment. So we asked them, like, under what minute you're paying this, because no cabinet minute, no apply to this, like you can't pay contract worker increment. Because this, that was going on this. I went crazy.
Nathan, I think you understand now why we're not going into detail concerning the division that shall not be mentioned anymore.
Yeah. But that's what Ziza was talking about, the blatant disregard for taxpayer money. But Ziza, that's not on Tobago, that's on the Tobago leadership. And I agree that has regularly been what I say about Tobago. When I look at Tobago, there's obviously a disregard for taxpayers' money in Tobago. And sometimes Trinis talk about that and seem like if they're talking about Tobagonians, as if Tobagonians are stealing the taxpayers' money of Trinidad and Tobago. But that's not the average Tobagonian. That aren't you hearing them talk about that here? It's not even necessarily the political class of Tobago. It's more the administrative class that is. And the strange thing about this, sometimes when you look at that, what you're expecting to see, like if you investigate what's going on there, you're expecting to see some kind of evil mastermind in the back that is stealing millions of dollars to build a mansion behind a mountain somewhere. But sometimes it's not even that strange. It's a mid-level manager who is siphoning off some money to take a trip to New York every year with her family. And by the end, they took about $3 million, and a couple of people well in the division did similar things like that. And if you speak to them, they may not see themselves as a mastermind of corruption. But when all of them do similar, well, not all of them, but when enough people do similar things, they add up, and that corruption spreads throughout the system. So yeah, I could see that. The guy who says Tobago is no different from Trinidad, I totally disagree with that. That is that is not true. I have been to Tobago, you know. Tobago and Trinidad are not the same in many ways. Trinidad and Tobago are different. All right, let's see who else is that.
Let me jump back in and show some more interesting untalked about conversation in the space. I know there was some talks concerning having a department or unit of the Public Service Commission stationed in Tobago. Let's go back to the situation with the current clerk and the deputy clerk of the House. Do you believe if a unit or a department of the Public Service Commission is stationed in Tobago, do you think a lot of these issues we face with public servants on a daily basis or in situations like this, or even at the middle-level management, could be rectified more? One. Two, I think recently some audit statement came up in the parliament concerning funds and audits in the Tobago space. It is very hard to audit in Tobago because everybody knows everybody. That is the reality. And based on that close-knitness, it's very hard to sell out one another. How can we be allowed to have a proper system in place for that? Secondly, I cast a lot of blame on cabinet or central government for not holding the leadership of Tobago to account. I am of the view, if you give your son or your daughter $20 to go to school today, and they cannot account for the $20 tomorrow, they're not getting back the $20. That's the reality. Even if it's 5 to go, 5 to come, they will give them transport alone. That's the reality. So I think central government needed to do a better job in terms of holding all THA spending to account, but because we were friends and Tobago friends in Trinidad, we will allow it to slide. I think that one of the areas need to change. One of the reasons I'm not involved in active politics is because of the same issues we're discussing. I believe my character is worth more than allegations of corruption, to be very honest with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so what was radiation said about the medicine difficult when you have too much people knowing. They said, I work in an office where it's like 9 of us. The 9 of us, it has 3 cousins. 3 cousins one way and 2 cousins one way. You understand? And these are the people who have to basically look into what's going on with the cousins and their family. And you hear them talk and it's like, bro, what is going on here? How you reach here? And it's again, how much of them? This cousin was the supervisor in the office, and the cousin come and be the supervisor in the office today. And next 2 years, the cousin will come and be the next supervisor in the office. You understand? It's like, what's going on here? Yeah. And then the last part. Continue until I got him as well.
The what you're saying, all 3 of what you said there positive, so closely linked. The part with the Public Service Commission being in Tobago, I kind of fully agree with that. I think the Public Service Commission is too widely stretched. In most companies, HR is in-house. It kind of doesn't make sense that we're hiring people for divisions and the people that are doing the hiring are from one commission on high away from everything. That kind of, I think the public service, most of those service commissions, I think, are obsolete. The Teaching Service Commission, the Public Service Commission, I think we could kind of do away with those things. Build a structure where like schools could hire their teachers, or individual organizations could have, as it were, their own HR in-house to do their own hiring. They would know what they need more. That's part of the bacchanal we're having, like with the DPP office now, where it seems like nobody really understands who is supposed to do the hiring inside of the DPP office. The DPP isn't in charge of it, but no one seems to know who is really in charge of it, and that's the problem. We need for the DPP to be in control of the hiring inside of the DPP's office. Now, there are some problems with that. The thing, as you're talking about there in Tobago, where everyone knows everyone, so it's hard to audit, that is going to become more of a problem if you bring hiring more in-house. You would understand. If you have more in-house hiring, that kind of closeness might be more of an issue. But I think, as you were talking about with the accountability side, that's where that comes in, where you're supposed to, ideally, you're supposed to have an accountability structure where the auditors could be from outside. So to me, ideally, you want to hire private auditors, hire a private accounting firm to do the audit instead of trying to get internal auditors. There are some things that just don't make sense to try and make them internal.
I want to tell an experience I had a couple years ago. So I happened to have a friend in a particular department in the central operations of the THA. Really would understand what I'm talking about. I'm talking in code and purpose. And I remember having a conversation with the said individual, and they forgot that I was on the phone. And I go, but wait now, how come you buying this for this price? I said, but it's the first time somebody was on holidays. So basically they were just doing their job and filling in, because there are 3 of them in the office. So she was just basically filling in for the other person. And the statement was, but wait now, oh, you could buy this for this price. Even if I go home and I buy this, I would never pay this price for this. This is an inflated cost. And run to the supervisor, indicate to the supervisor now, but how this person was doing this all the time. Them figures, they're crazy. Then following that, then time when the person realized that I was still on the phone and cut the call. If that is what happening, if it persons even within the same department, you're seeing the exorbitant prices, and you're red flagging it, you come like you're showing up your other colleague, and now you create a whole bacchanal in the office. Nobody ain't talking to nobody. You can't go buy this one for harvest, because this one and this one get in the office. But that is the level that it comes down to, say there are good persons in the system and we're not bashing all of them. But it's so bad, all I want you to do is to make one corrupt act and hold it over here.
Part of the issue with that positive is how hard it is to get rid of people. If it was that when you found out somebody was behaving in that kind of manner, they were fired from the job, well, you don't have to worry about going to work and seeing them next week. But you can't fire anybody really in the public service. So if you complain about them, you're still going to have to see them next week and next month. You know, I liked what you said, Kevon, that Tobago politics is very niche. It has that kind of Game of Thrones vibes. For real, you feel that, the niche. But as I see, as much of the complaints as I hear about Tobago politics, I live in the central region. I wish we had a Couva House of Assembly that we could have had these complaints about, where we could have talked about the issues of my direct region to a more specific sense. I wish that. To me, that's how areas are supposed to be run. Get it much less decentralized, much closer down to the community. Just how there's a Tobago House of Assembly, in each community there is supposed to be something similar to that to run the community, and you're able to get things done more like that. As weird as it is with Tobago, I think Tobago House of Assembly, with all the warts and all that you all are talking about, there still runs better and more ideally than most of the local government regional corporations in Trinidad. I would rather a House of Assembly over a regional corporation any day.
Well, they do get more money and stuff, but what's the relation? Like exactly what you're saying? Because when I was in Trinidad, I worked on a particular desk. When I came to Tobago, I had a friend who was working that desk in Tobago. And we were talking about work and stuff, and he was telling me, yes, I have to pay this. And I was like, how are you paying that? Like, that's not supposed to be on your desk. And he was like, what do you mean? I'm like, where's your minute for that, sir? Because in Trinidad, we are accustomed with you only pay when you have the cabinet minute to attach. They are not yet. They are not.
When he messaged me privately, I am very suspicious. You're working close to somebody who I know very, very good. I think you need to message me privately.
But yeah, boy, I am happy that we have the potential to make a lot of changes if we want to. But I think it is more difficult. And I was hearing something about a commission in Tobago. Isn't there a service commission in Tobago upstairs? What's his name, boy? The Kingman, the locksmith person in my penny savers in Scarborough. Upstairs, they have a service commission office. And
they have
as well as Castlewood in charter.
But a lot of those things, they can't sort them out there. A lot of them things have to go to Trinidad still, and a number of them have to go down the road. A lot of them, there's an office, yes, but to say if the office is fully functional or can address some of these things is very, very challenging. A lot of them still has to go to Trinidad.
Ria, look at the time.
Anyway, we're down 5%. And 5%, that's the good.
Ria, come when we looking to go. Ria, what is going on with you, Ria?
Really, message me privately, please. I'm very suspicious of working very close to somebody who I know, very personal.
Ria, Ria is we talking about public service jobs that she's be coming from this hour. Ria, you sure is the public service you're working in? You sure?
Yeah, I know she was
as Ria is here, something came to mind. I know Ria is a lady big on culture. Miss Ward, what is your thoughts on the Tobago Performing Arts Company and the way they operate?
The Tobago Performing Arts Company.
Yeah, Nathan. But but to be honest, I think I tell people Tobago is not a hard country to govern, it's not a hard island to operate. We just get too accustomed operating corrupt. We get so comfortable doing the wrong thing that it becomes natural that people believe in Bobo or each us. Or you have to know somebody to get you with something. It just becomes so natural now that I put up a post on my social media a couple months ago and I got a lot of slack for it truthful in the schools. It makes no sense we teach them to be honest and to follow the rules and all of that. Because as they leave school and they get out into the real world, that is what working for persons. The underhandedness, the corruption, that is what working. So why are we teaching you to be honest in the schools? And when you come out, we teach you the next. So it's like we kind of confusing children and we're going to create problems going forward.
The thing is, the Tobago Performing Arts Company, if I'm remembering what you're talking about correctly, that's the guy who has his own private company that is a stage and lighting company or something like that. And he is also the CEO of the TPAC, and he wanted to be able to still get contracts for, is it the Jazz Festival or something like that. Now, when I heard that on the face, I found it totally ridiculous. But then I read into the article some more, and what it was is, according to the man, at the outset, he did not want to be involved in the decision-making processes in this, because he wanted his company to be able to bid for the contracts. So he told them that they should exclude him out of any decision-making that would cause him to not be able to bid on the contracts. And then by the end of it all, they did not send out a bid. What's the word for that? Whatever the bidding stuff, they didn't send it out to his company. So he sued them over that. He wanted to know why it was he could not have bid for the contract. So he feels, according from the news article, the tone it gives is that it seems like he is, as it was suggesting, like they set him up to make sure that he wasn't able to bid for the contract. He wanted to bid for the contract. He said, don't involve me in any decisions that would exclude me from bidding for the contract. They did involve him in those decisions and he cannot bid for the contract, so he sued about that. Positive says, Nathan, why did the High Court rule in favor of the THA? Because at the end of the day, if he was indeed involved in the decision-making processes, then he cannot get the contract. What he could have, of course he has a conflict of interest. He was unwise if he thought that somehow he could weave his way around the decision-making processes to still not get a conflict of interest. Like, that's unwise. If he really wanted to bid, he would have excluded himself totally and not involved himself in the process. To involve yourself in the process, tell them, leave me out of the technical parts that would conflict. That's unwise. Of course you're going to lose that.
I'd like to answer the question that I came up to answer.
What
I think about TPAC. From a organization point of view, the TPAC makes sense. Similarly as we have NTAC, which is the National Theatre Arts Company. Tobago perform their performing arts company, not just to specialize in drama or theatre arts, but specifically to bring about the performing arts industry of not really Trinidad and Tobago, but Trinidad and Tobago. I think in the whole discussion from before to present about Tobago and Trinidad, they have this idea that they're being left behind or they're being not considered. So the idea of wanting their own performing arts company, and even when it is TPAC was accepting resident players and whatnot, they had their public for Trinidad and Tobago, of course, and they had persons from Trinidad applying and willing to relocate to Tobago to be a full-time performer, whether it be dance, music, drama. They were willing to move. And because currently, as it is, how Tobago sees everything is being in Trinidad, when it is somebody wants to join the theatre arts body, they have to relocate to Trinidad if they're from Tobago. So just that idea of Tobago being able to stand on their own to say, well, hey, we have this. But even more importantly, TPAC's vision, so far from what I've understood, is to mobilize their creative sector so that they're more than just local. It's not about necessarily pushing local content out there, but it is an objective, but it is more so to get their local artists, creatives out there. So while company. I don't know what really is the goal of it, but I can say from what I've heard, from what I've seen, from what I've understood, that TOBAGO is trying to get their brand known worldwide, and by extension, get their work, get their cast, get their creative directors on the whole, from music to whatever, get them out there. I know they are different in that when it is, I went last year to see the opening ceremony for the Tobago Heritage Festival. Tobago Heritage, as we know, is a traditional something, and they married both traditional and modern ways of presenting. So their opening ceremony was a mixture of theater and film, and they of course included some of the, well, not of course included, but some of the cultural and traditional things of Tobago itself to solidify their storyline. So it wasn't like to say it's just some random concept like Star Wars that they created and tried to palm off. They actually used their own work. So to speak about the operations of TOBAGO, what I think about them, I think so far from what I've seen, from what I understand, that they're doing a great job. But from, again, the other point of view, where for me, in the beginning, it just looked like Tobago just wants something because Trinidad have it and they feel they're being left out. But I think now I can see a clear vision from them that I don't necessarily get from the National Theatre Arts Company. But I can't say for sure because I still don't know what NTAC, NPO, and NSSO, what they're supposed to do. Like,
they're supposed to make money for some people.
Players, but let us say we're giving players a career where it is they are employed and not having to live on a job by job basis, on a gig by gig basis. But I mean, in reality, they're always on 1 year contracts to be renewed. And then let's be real, it's not like to say one player. I don't think one player could stay with any one of those performing arts bodies for more than 10 years. Not in theory, but in practicality. If it is I stay there for 10 years, like, am I really growing? Is my craft improving? Because if it is, if I'm a performer and I'm with NTAC, let's say I am a singer slash actress, and I with NTAC 10 years. So you mean to tell me nobody else didn't see me nowhere else and want me? So I just
therein you could see the purpose of the organizations in the first place. They give visibility to the artists that work with them. You're able for people to go out there and for people to see work, probably to see some avenues of work, to see, okay, well, I could go and work on a cruise ship and play music, I could do this, I could do that. People see me, I make connections, I network with other musicians, with other like-minded creatives, etc. So that is a service in and of itself. And on the Tobago end of it, that makes sense because Tobago is a tourism island. So to have a Tobago performing arts company makes a lot of sense. And if what you're saying is accurate, where they do seem to have a vision, they do seem to be focusing in on a product, then that's perfect. I like the sound of that, because I think that's what Tobago needs. Tobago needs more things to attract more people there. That's how Tobago makes money. So more and more of that is what is needed. If indeed the Tobago perform. What's that, Positive?
Question for the both of you guys. One, is it profitable to operate those types of companies on a regular basis? How often shows need to be held? What are the prices? Do you think we have a theater going population in Trinidad and Tobago, like a Broadway type thing, which could make these operations profitable, one, and not state dependent? Two, the current structure of NSSO, the National Steel Symphony, Steel Orchestra, these types of companies, we know it's national, meaning supposed to be Trinidad and Tobago. I have a problem when people say it's delivered nationwide. When I tell them Tobago, they tell me they can't do it. So I think it is better we divide both islands when it comes to some of these things, simply because it's not practicable and it does not make sense. How many Tobagonians can actually be a part of the National Steel Symphony? We saw it happen with the Tobago Rangers, where we share real blows in the pan competition, but not one of these guys have ever played with the National Steel Symphony. Why?
you're going just now, yeah. I would say on the first thing about the sustainability, that's why I said for the Tobago side, I think that makes sense. Here's the thing. Tobago doesn't have to make a product that Tobagonians necessarily want. If Tobago makes a if Tobago could make a product that the world wants enough, that has a world standard, they will attract the audience. That's Tobago's intent. So I don't know how profitable it necessarily has to be in Trinidad, but in Tobago, what you need to do is create a product that enough people want, and then in that case, I think it would be profitable. And I am sympathetic on the Tobago end to government sponsored things even a little more because of the tourism facing intent of the island. So yeah, it could make sense that the state pays for this thing that doesn't seem like it's making an obvious profit if it attracts enough people to the island. On the Trinidad side, I will say that those things should be minor in terms of the amount of resources they require, because I would say on the Trinidad side, what ideally you would want is, as I was saying, you create it as a facility for creating networking for the musicians, for allowing them to get some exposure, but it's not meant to be a career for musicians. If as a musician you need the government to pay you in order to have a livable career, then maybe you're not a good enough musician, not enough people care to hear you. As a musician, your talent is supposed to be what people want to listen to. If people don't want to listen to you, then maybe you're not that talented. So that would be my view on that. Yeah. We had to go. Let me hear you say.
Okay, so much points to hit. Well, first of all, these national entities aren't closed off to Tobagonians. In reality, the logistics for Tobagonians to be employed, it doesn't make sense. Let's say the starting salary for an apprentice player is about $7,000. When it is they consider, let's just say, I don't know. I said let's just say, I'm trying to give them.
It's actually around that figure. It's actually around that figure for T-Pack in Tobago. It's somewhere around there.
Okay, so it's good. Well, let's look at that. Pick up me. Anyway, so let's say $7,000. If it is you are paid $7,000 and you have to relocate to Trinidad to live. Now, I don't know what the renting price is like in Tobago. But let's say for a comfortable one-bedroom apartment, yeah, at least $2,500 out. And this is not inclusive of your internet. And you could pray that it is inclusive of electricity, but it's not a guarantee. Anybody could correct me if I'm wrong on this. And in order for you to get like cheaper, more reasonable apartments, you have to go in like the bush. I would say Shogunas. The bush.
Tread carefully.
But I'm joking. Anyway, so but like Cunupia, even Grandy, maybe you will have to go to some distant places. When I say distant, obviously not like Guaya. I mean, even if you go Guaya, might get for like 1,500. Who knows? I don't know.
Distant from where?
The distance to travel. No, all these national entities are housed at Napa. NSSO, NPO, and NTAC. So in order for you to travel today, remember, you're facing the traffic every morning. So whether you are traveling or driving, you have to do one out of two things. You have to wake up earlier to reach on time. In where Tobago or Trinidad? No. So in any case, so you have now accommodation to pay for. You now have your regular transportation fees, well, depending on where you're coming from. And that's what I say, if it is you make $7,000 and you're paying half of it just to live and get to work, I mean, is it really something that you want to do?
Makes sense.
Considering that when it is you work currently in your household, you may be contributing to the house. So now all these bills rely on you. You now have to pay, $2,000 in groceries per month, if so little. I mean, it's just you, so you could probably get away with it. But then you have other things to study.
That makes sense, and
you do have other things.
Logistically, the Tobagonians, it just isn't feasible. Although the avenue is open for them, logistically, it doesn't make sense. But do you think it's a viable thing economically, as he asked?
Right. So on to that point, I think one of the things that we have to debunk from this capitalist system is the idea that the arts do not make money, right? So, in my opinion, opinion, this is just from how I see things. If it is we were to treat the arts like a proper career path, you could see where it would be sustainable. However, even in introducing different creative arts or cultural arts to the population, as you said from before, not everything is going to suit the Trinidad market. So if it is we are considering outside persons, like let's say for Carnival, for Carry Festa, for Chogum, for anything where it is you have a flock of people come, that Agri Expo that they had last year, when you have a flock of people coming in, we should be able to target our efforts to suit them, not necessarily because we are monkeys in a circus, but because when it is they come there, we are trying to get our work out to them. To stay in Trinidad or to aim to just be an actor in Trinidad is like saying I was on an ad for courts for 2 years, I famous. I mean, okay, big up you. That's, to me, that's the equivalent. You could be the best actor in Trinidad and Tobago, but the reality is the man who do this one is just as famous as you, because I know I see him more because he's in my face every day. About 15 seconds, asking his mother with the remote.
No, but you see, film is a big thing as well, because I have seen some excellent films coming out of Trinidad and Tobago that has not made mainstream.
Well, exactly, and this is my thing. You have to consider the global market. You can't just say you're making a movie using our culture, you're making a movie for everybody else, and everybody else does not like it. If it is you have a shop, right? And you say because you like feathers, you want to sell feathers, and nobody there really want feathers, they want beads. You would still want to sell feathers, hoping that one day they change their mind. You have to supply and demand. You have to look at what it is they're looking for. Even if it is you're talking about having a horror film and you're utilizing local culture. If it is you see people try to do horror films and it's not hitting, start to examine what exactly is not working from the film. It is because, and this is me having a business that focuses on cultural elements, it is too often that people try to focus too much on the culture and not enough on the entertainment. Granted that culture is rooted in history and tradition, when it is we are giving it to other people, we have to give them what is culturally correct, appropriate. However, when it is you presenting a dance to them, they don't care about the history of the dance, they want to see something entertaining. So stop focusing so much on the cultural element to present it. No, when it is you are presenting it, if it is something rooted in fantasy or if it is something reimagined, ensure that you say that, because you do not want to appropriate your own culture or anybody's culture for that matter.
You see what you said there, yeah? I 100% agree with that. And you know where I saw that in closing? We're going to close now, so I could go and have a rest. Well, actually, I'm not going to rest, but we could close soon. But somewhere I realized that...
I just want that closing word when I finish.
Yeah, where I realized that real well was in cricket. Strange enough, in cricket, there were some of those old West Indian heads who were sure that the only real cricket is test match, you know. They're not playing that 5-day cricket anymore, you know. This new thing is not really cricket, you know. Listen, if the test match was all that was out there, cricket would have been dead. T20 2020 saved the life of cricket across the world. For those of you who don't know sports references, that's tough. But it saved the life of cricket across the world, because it was able to bring cricket into the 21st century. It was able to create a more entertaining product for the world. More people wanted to watch this thing that would have finished in 20 overs instead of watching 5 days of men in white clothes beating a ball across the hot sun. So they created a more entertaining product using the same raw material. So I fully agree with what you're saying there. What you need to examine is the entertainment value of the product. Now, the difficulty with that is it's difficult to ascertain the entertainment value of something when you have the state paying for it, because now you don't need a free market basis of it. You can't tell you can't tell the demand for it, because you aren't depending on the demand to pay for it. You could make a product that nobody wants and you're still going to get paid the same amount. If you're in the private market, where if you make a product that nobody likes, you're not making any money, then you have to by default depend on what's entertaining too. So maybe we could see how we could tie in a private side into that, a kind of demand and supply market business into that. Maybe. Let me hear your positive radiation, your closing remarks there.
Right. In closing, firstly, let me say on behalf of all Tobagonians, I really do appreciate these types of frank, open discussions. Because oftentimes mainstream media does not give us this space to ventilate and have such open discussions on the way we live and the situations at face. One. Two, you guys research Triple Space Studios and Jared Primer. You will see some interesting ways Tobago folklore cultures have been used.
A very dynamic filmmaker. I was with him already. He's amazing. He did the
I have worked with him a lot.
For Tobago Heritage last year.
Positive, you would message me those names, eh?
Like the Pentecostal Light and Life Foundation. He was a former director of Tobago Theatre Company, which I used to perform with. Finally giving up plenty of my ID these days, boy. But yeah, so I think we had the options there. I like the arts. That's why I love the arts. I enjoy performing. We saw Turn of the Tide and how the effect Turn of the Tide had. We remember Westwood Park and Mackey and those types of stories. Why are we not going back there? We see the bacchanal on this same TikTok app. Why are we not turning those things into television series? Why are we not making money off of? No, I'm being honest. Why are we not making money off of these things?
Those types of projects, an initial investment is needed, and that initial investment is sometimes a lot, because to pay cast and crew to do a pilot, not just a pilot episode, but an entire season for it to run, to then see if it will pick up, is where the trouble is. So they will invest $1 million, let's say. That's just being, I don't know if it's reasonable or not. They will invest $1 million for, let me say, 8 to 10 episodes to see if it will hit. And I mean, in this day and age now, let us be real. How many people actively sitting down to watch TV? Now, if it is they create shorts, YouTube shorts, which also are able to play on TikTok or on any social media, because I think Instagram videos are like, the reels are like maximum 1.5 minutes or something like that. Then yeah, you could see where it is. You could put things on these platforms and people will eat it up. But to say it's a TV show, like a full TV show, especially when it is you can't stream it on any other station but local television, it's annoying.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is I have seen it. There is this series that I had Survivor series shot in Tobago. Tobago 1976, shot in Tobago. This thing with this I think it's the Stevenson's family, shot in Tobago. There are a number of these elements where we made money off of it because of the way it was marketed. You see, Tobagonians, one, don't know, and two, the country don't know about some of these projects. If you are not closely connected to persons in some of these places, you will take care of work, and it has happened. So this is what I'm thinking now going forward. I think we need to begin to look at some solutions for these things. Because if people here could say Westwood Park was lit, I am not sure if my 13-year-old or my 18-year-old cousin even know what Westwood Park look like.
My
if they could even name some actors in Westwood Park.
Because it was bacchanal, and I can tell you Westwood Park was the best thing ever.
You see, that's what I'm saying. So we have more bacchanal now than Westwood Park days. And you telling me I can't see a local series on Netflix? You telling me I can't be traveling from New York to Trinidad and watching some good bacchanal and the movie coming? No, that's right now we could look at it. We have airlines coming here. We can't sign a deal for them kind of things. I'll vote for me and I will set you free.
It depends on which companies are willing to take that initial hit
risk
and invest in it.
Here's the thing, in closing, here. Thank you, everyone. This was nice. But I also think that maybe some people are looking backwards. Maybe what we need to be looking for isn't necessarily trying to make a pilot and eight episodes to make a season of a TV show to go on to the local channel. Look for internet. What some people are doing through social media is already more entertaining than some of the TV shows. It may make you more money than some of the TV shows. Lean into it. Don't think that the only way you have to do it is go back to the old legacy media and create it like that. Create it the new way. Who is to say that I need to go? Like some people tell me what you need is a talk show on TV. Who says so? Maybe the TV is dying and this is actually what is being born out of it. And those who are looking to go back to TV, go back to that, they may be looking to go, they're the dinosaurs. They're the dinosaurs frolicking right before the asteroid hits. Maybe. All right, folks, this has been the Mindful Live Wednesday evening Tobago Talks edition. Always nice and lively as usual. It was good. It was good, yo. So I will see you guys again for the next Mindful Live, which will be tomorrow evening starting around that 9:30 p.m. time. And until then, folks, stay well, hold it on. Have a good one. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Laters, people. Stay safe. Peace out.